So FanDuel's released their win totals for teams in the Big 12 today. It's going to piss you off. Be ready for it. Here we go. And again, I played the wrong introduction. Hey, everyone, I'm Joey Foster. That over there is Mr. Shane. Shane, what's happening, brother?
Not much. You sent me that today, and my head's still spinning from I don't know the logic behind it, but we'll get into it. And also, guys, we're here early today because West Virginia plays at 8, and we know a lot of our fans are going to be wanting to watch the game and not us two yapping. But
yep, and I noticed that at the same time that my notification came in that said it was going to be live in 30 minutes. And then I got a notification in just now that said we're live. So a lot of people won't even notice that we're live already, but that's okay. We're here, and they'll go back and watch us. I ain't worried about that. So let's talk about this because it's going to piss some people off. That's for sure. I know it really pissed me off. So here we go. 2024 college football Big 12 win totals. This is according to FanDuel.
Yeah.
Kansas State 9.5. I can see that. Utah 9.5. Can see that. I'm okay with that. Arizona 8.5. Nah. Lost a coach. Lost some production off that team.
Yeah, lost some players.
Lost some players that are in the transfer portal. Nah. Arizona not going to win. Might not be 8.5. They might be 6.5. And I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Kansas 8.5. But look at this. Let's get down to it. West Virginia 6.5 win total. 6.5. There's no respect at all. Even after a 9-win season, returning 90% of your production on offense and 70% on defense, and they still don't give us any respect whatsoever. That's just how it is when you're a Mountaineer fan, I believe, though. I mean, it really is because it seems like every year they have to prove themselves. They had to prove themselves last year being picked 14th. Now here they are, 6.5 win total.
I'm gonna go through each one real quick, even though this is the West Virginia show, not the Big 12 show. But Kansas, they finished 4th last year, right, Joey? 4th, right behind Oklahoma and Texas, Oklahoma and Texas are gone. So yeah, I can see them being top dogs, top tier, as we say on the Big 12 show. I break them into 3 tiers. So they're the top of the cake. I think they definitely are this year. They have they're tied for the highest win total, so I can see that. But they lost Will Howard, and they have a new guy named Avery Johnson who showed a lot of moxie last year, and he was a true freshman, so he didn't get a lot of reps, but it's now his job, and they have a 1,000-yard rusher, in the backfield with them. So they'll be fun to watch, see Willie the Wildcat doing push-ups in the end zone for K-State. So Utah 9.5. I can see it. I believe it. They have a healthy Cam Rising who led them to conference titles in 21 and 22. And now he was out last year and he got a medical red shirt, but he threw over 3,000 yards and 26 touchdowns. So, plus he has, pretty good feet. He rushed for another 400 or 500. So guys, Utah is a good team, and they're in my opinion, I think they're a better defensive team than you think. But 9.5 for Utah. I agree. Okay.
Yeah. So your next one on there is going to be Arizona 8.5 and Kansas 8.5.
Arizona. Now let's get to the pimple. And this is what this is. Okay, guys. If the coach wouldn't have left, they would have been 9.5. But the coach leaves. All the coaching staff is gone. They lost a few key players. When the coach left to Washington, they left with him. So they just had a 10-win season, and then Jed Fish, he decided to, move on to greener pastures. But Brent Brennan, yeah, he did a good job at San Jose State. He did a great job there. But that momentum it's not like it's just going to transfer over from San Jose State to Arizona. There's going to be, these kids have to, the kids that they do have there that remain are going to have to learn Brent Benham's system, and they're going to have to, kind of figure out what's going on. Now, they keep their starting quarterback, that Noah Fiftifa. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And they're keeping one of their key receivers. But is that enough to have an 8.5? No, I think they're 6.5, like you said, and not West Virginia. I would flip flop Arizona and West Virginia. That's what I would change on here. So Kansas, let's go to the Jayhawks. The Jayhawks should be higher.
Do you think so?
Higher.
8.5?
Yes.
Well, now here's the thing about it. I did a schedule preview for Kansas.
9.
I did a schedule preview for Kansas today. They've got a pretty easy schedule. And to be honest with you, when I got through, I wasn't going to do a schedule preview, but I looked at that schedule and said, they got 3 tough games. They've got West Virginia, they've got TCU, and they got Utah. West Virginia's in Morgantown. It's going to be their toughest game. Utah's, well, other than Utah, and it's in Utah. That's going to be a tough game. I think they lose them too. But the rest of them, I think they win. And hey, if I wasn't a Mountaineer fan, I might have them beating the Mountaineers in Morgantown, Kansas, to give them 11 win. So can Kansas go undefeated? I don't think there's any doubt, but I really believe that their floor this year is 9 wins, and I think their ceiling is 12-0 for Kansas.
Absolutely. I like the Kansas and Kansas State more than I like Oklahoma State. I'm just saying. I think they have a better. I think I'm a huge Lance Leipold fan. Okay, I think 2 seasons he went for 9 wins, guys. They were the cellar dwellers for how long? And I think that stank is sticking to them, and they're not getting the love they deserve. So I have some notes here. Their season rests on Jalen Daniels. Much like, West Virginia had with Pat White back in the day. If he misses time, then that's an L. Okay. If he's out, I don't see the backup filling his shoes. He's such a game changer. He threw for 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, ran for 425. Guys, he's legit. Who's next on that list? Let's see what we have here.
So next on that list,
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, 8.5.
Oh, they lose Tyler.
So here's my problem with Texas Tech.
Yeah,
it was the same crap last year. They were supposed to be fantastic.
Yeah.
They came in and just went downhill. The difference is they're returning a lot of production too. They're returning about 85% of their production at Texas Tech. So they've got a lot coming back, and he's had some fantastic recruiting classes and stuff. So those players are going to be ready and in the program and ready to play now. I think Texas Tech could be a sleeper in the Big 12 this year. But at the same time, jumping them to 8.5 after last year and throwing West Virginia at 6.5 after last year, there's no rhyme or reason to this crap they do. Texas Tech, to me, I would have put Texas Tech about 7.5 wins, and maybe they prove they're better than that. And they can prove they're better into 8.5. But Texas Tech, after last year, I just don't see it.
I don't see it.
I don't either.
Texas Tech at 8.5 and Oklahoma State at 7.5. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Did they even watch football last year?
UCF at 8.5 with
That's
Oklahoma
crazy.
State at 7.5, TCU at 7.5, and West Virginia at 6.5. Now look at that. UCF getting more respect than 5 of the previous irate 8. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia, and Baylor. UCF getting more respect. Guess what? How many of them teams did UCF beat last year? Can you say 0? Can you say 0? And beat
Guys,
any of them.
you ask a coach if he had to pick teams on this schedule. UCF. Yeah, if I was a coach, I'd rather play UCF than Oklahoma State. I'd rather play UCF than West Virginia. I'd rather play UCF than a lot of those ones that. Okay, but let's just talk about Texas Tech real quick. Okay, their starting quarterback, the Tyler Shaw or whatever his name is, he went to transfer portal. He's bye. They're returning a redshirt freshman that played a few games. Is Barham Morton. I don't know how good he's going to be, but you know they have a great running back coming back, Taj Brooks. But are those two an unknown freshman quarterback? He's going to be a redshirt freshman and a decent running back. That doesn't bode for 8.5 score. I see them as a 6.5.
Well, my biggest problem with this is the fact that, UCF being up there like that makes no sense. But it makes about the same sense as TCU, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State being down in the middle of the pack of the Big 12. When's the last time you've seen Oklahoma State finish in the middle of the Big 12, especially at Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma? Oklahoma State's not going to finish in the middle like this says. TCU's not going to finish in the middle. TCU's one of them teams where they're at the top or at the bottom, right? They're very seldom in the middle. West Virginia usually they're the top. Last few years at the bottom. Last year, not at the bottom. Last year they finished fourth, along with a lot of other teams. I don't know. I can't figure this out. The thing about it is, this is just one. It's FanDuel, okay?
Yeah.
But the others are going to follow suit pretty close to this. They're never far off. They're never far off. At Baylor, now I'll say this to you, like you talked about a while ago. I'd rather face UCF than Baylor, and Baylor's been a dumpster fire. And Baylor's been a dumpster
or Colorado.
Fire. Yeah, but Baylor's a Power 5 program and been in Power 5 for a long time. They're a lot more adjusted than UCF is. I'm not scared of UCF. I'm not scared of Cincinnati, Houston, or BYU. I'm not scared of any of them. I am scared of the poor newcomers from the Pac-12. Not all four of them, but I am concerned about Arizona. I'm very concerned about Arizona. Very concerned about Utah. And I have my concerns about Colorado as well. So, but these other teams that came in last year from Group of 5 and then with us, I think they just need it. I think they're going to need another year to adjust. I really do. That playing that Power 5 schedule week in and week out is tough. Proved to them all last year how tough it was. None of them had a good year. It's going to be the same this year. The team that I would pick to be finishing up there, if I was going to pick any of them four newcomers, it'd be BYU to finish up there. I wouldn't pick UCF. I'd pick BYU.
Yeah, BYU. Well, Oklahoma State's the one that sticks out. Now,
I'm talking about the newcomers. If I was going to pick one of the four newcomers to be up that high, it would have been BYU, not UCF.
Not UCF, absolutely. But UCF, I'm going to talk about the glass half full. UCF lost their games last year by a margin of like 3.5. Okay, the games were close. So they were in most of those games. However, they did lose. So I see the upside. I see how they could be rated an 8 or 7.5. 8.5 is just a smidge too high for me. I give them a 7.5. I was now, UCF has a stud running back and they got some good receivers and they just got to transfer this KG Jefferson from Arkansas. So they've reloaded. They're doing great in the transfer portal. I think they're going to be legitimate top tier, but are they with the big boys? I don't think so. Iowa State, I don't know. Matt Campbell, you think he's on the hot seat?
So here's the thing about it. Iowa State returns a lot of production from last year, a whole lot of production. And not only that, we got to think about this. Every 4 years, Matt Campbell puts together a good program at Iowa State. Yeah. We're on year 4 again. 2020 was a great year for him.
Yes, sir.
We're at 2024 now. This should be another good year for Matt Campbell, I believe. So Iowa State, I think they've got them at 7.5. That's probably about right. I think Iowa State's probably about right.
I think that's right. But, their quarterback, Rocco Becht, Beck, he was the freshman offensive player at the Big 12. Okay, last year, 3,100 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. That's a really good. Those are some good stats. Okay, two of his favorite receivers are back, Higgins and Noel. So I think that's spot on. I give that a gold star. Let's go on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I think they're a little low.
Before we get there, let me say one more time to the chat, because a lot of them are starting to come in now. We started early because the West Virginia basketball game is coming on at 8:00. So we started early so that you can catch some of our show and then maybe go and watch the basketball game. And we don't want to be on too late because Shane likes to watch a basketball game too. I love to watch basketball too, but this year it's just not. I get too mad this year, if that makes any sense.
I hear you.
I can't watch them without breaking TVs, so I'm not watching them. All right, so now we're down to Oklahoma State 7.5.
Yeah, for those of you just tuning in, we've basically agreed with the top half, except for guys. We don't think Arizona should be up there. Okay, and you can watch what I said later, but I'll talk about it again. But right now we're talking about the Cowboys at 7.5, and I think that's crazy talk. They're at least a 9.5. If you have to pick, it's like flip the coin. Do you want to play Oklahoma State or Kansas? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, you give me a break. It's like an uppercut or a jab. I mean, they're both gonna. The Cowboys, they played in the Big 12 championship last year.
Anybody that ever doubts Mike Gundy is a fool. Period. Anybody that doubts Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, because he never has them that bad. I mean, sure, they win 7-8 games sometimes, but they're not going to be that bad next year. They're going to be really good. This past year, they returned a lot of production too, including that running back that nobody can friggin' stop. Nobody.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon. He was a Heisman candidate. And they have Alan Bowman back. He's the 7th year of eligibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he gets a PhD. It'd be Dr. Alan Bowman.
Some of these players have 9 years of eligibility now. I mean,
they're going to hit second puberty. They're going to start getting ear hairs and nose hairs and back hairs and all that. Okay, let's talk about TCU. I think 7 would be okay for them, 7.5, but they are TCU. A year and a half ago, they were playing a national championship. They looked like hot garbage last year. They were 5-7. But still, I'm not going to put them at 7.5. I'd put them at 8. Not 7.5. And then you have the mighty Mountaineers of West by God, Virginia at 6.5. Guys,
we got to dwell on this one. We've got to
tied for 4th place last year.
Tied for 4th place last year. Beat North Carolina in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Had a 9-win season, bringing back 90% of their production on offense, 70% of their defense, and for some reason they don't think we can get past 6.5 wins. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, they led the Big 12 in rushing last year with 228.9 yards.
And guess what? Same running backs are coming back that did that. Same quarterbacks coming back that did that. Same offensive line minus Zach Frazier's coming back that did that.
The defense was ranked 5th in yards allowed per game. Guys, Jaheim Wright returns. C.J. Donaldson returns. Garrett Green returns at the quarterback position. So, this is a team that does not have to play Oklahoma or Texas this year. So you're going to say
there's something else on West Virginia's team this year. There's something else on West Virginia's team this year that I don't think anybody's looking at. We got some depth. We got a little bit of depth out there. If our quarterback, Garrett Green, goes down, Nico Marchio is a competent and capable quarterback and just as good, if not better, than Garrett Green. If C.J. Donaldson is the starter and he goes down, well, we've got Jaheim White. If Jaheim White's the starter and goes down, well, we got C.J. Donaldson. So you never know which one of them. They're interchangeable. So I mean, you're not going to lose anything there. Somebody goes down, you're going to be okay in the running game. We've got some depth at wide receiver, not like you want, but you know what? We've got plenty of capable wide receivers out there, uh, and with returning production, that's going to be out of this world. And then their backups are not so bad either. We have on the only thing that I worry about on for us is our defense secondary. Same thing every year.
Same
Worry
thing
about
as
our
last year.
secondary.
It just seems to be
So
the same old, same old.
it seems to not change from year to year. Our secondary just seems to be the weakest point of our program right now. If they could shore if they could shore that secondary up, we could have a great team. And maybe that's what a lot of people look at it and say, well, they're in the Big 12. Some of those teams can score a lot of points. West Virginia's playing some of them teams that score a lot of points, like Arizona, like Colorado, like Oklahoma State. Some of these teams can score a lot of points. And when you've got a secondary that's questionable, maybe you start thinking, okay, they're not going to win some of these games because of that. Their secondary is going to cost them some games. So I can understand that, but still, 6.5, no way. I would have been okay if they would have said 8. I would have been okay if they said 8.5. There's no way anything below 8 for West Virginia should be right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they picked up some cornerbacks in the transfer portal, so I'm hoping. And I don't know, you get someone from Duquesne. How do you match that? Measure that the talent level, that he's playing against. That's a very difficult and slippery slope, I think. It's different if you're recruiting someone from Arkansas or even like Boise State, or that's different. But Duquesne, guys, and on paper and in video, he looks really good. Okay, and the young man's name's slipping me. I'm gonna have to look it up here.
Well, one thing that gets me, and this has been true for a while now. West Virginia seems to do pretty good getting a player out of the transfer portal on defense in the secondary, whether it's safety or linebacker or cornerback, that just like comes in and just sets the world on fire. I think back to Fields that came over from Arizona, how good he was. Beanie Bishop last year and how good he was coming over.
Yeah, he was the standard bearer for what you want your transfer to do.
Right.
Aiden Garnes is the kid that just hit. He's the one from Duquesne. Now he was all NEC, and he's really good. He's a good ball player, but let's just see how that translates. But we could have said the same thing about Beanie last year. And then they got a receiver from Oklahoma State. He has he has some game time experience. They got another. They got a good player that's TJ Crandall, and he was a true freshman last year. Now he played 7 games for Colorado State, so he has laced it up and butted heads with Colorado and played some big schools and big time games. So we'll see if he will be able to carry that and further develop under Neil Brown. But they got a linebacker from Ohio State, Reed Carrico, and he was a 4-star recruit and the number 8 kid in the class in 2021. So, it's I don't know. He has 2 years, so that is fantastic. I think when you bring a guy into your program that has 2 years eligibility, if you can keep him on there for 2 years, I think that's a big win. And I think that's a good same with that TJ Crandall from Colorado State, the cornerback. He has 3 years eligibility, and I think that might be a big feather in the cap, even though people were talking about Aiden Garnes from Duquesne more. But they have they got an offensive lineman in their portal. He's from Dunbar, West Virginia, so that's a layup. And he was playing for Rich Rod down in Jacksonville State last year. So
yeah,
I wonder what.
Yeah, it's good to have him.
Was.
And now I guess Noel Devine's son is going to be playing for Rich Rod. And we know that Noel Devine wanted his son to come to West Virginia, and we don't know what happened there, but that's okay. Water under the bridge. He's going to play for Rich Rod, which tells me maybe after a year or two, he'll be ready for West Virginia and can come into the program. And that's what I hope. It'd be nice to have a legacy. Be nice to have that legacy player back there. I mean, just how I feel. I do want to say hi to everybody in the chat here real quick. We need to let everybody know that we appreciate you coming in. Timothy Green, as always, one of the first ones here. He's always the first one to hit the like button, first one to comment.
Thanks, Tim.
Jackson Johnson, of course, always in here with us. Appreciate you, Jackson. Jackson's friggin' everywhere, man. He's all over the place.
He's like he's like the Energizer Bunny.
Yvette Foster, I hear that her husband's not worth a crap, but she's a pretty good woman. Hey, look here. We've got the Voice of College Football. Remember that 8 of the 14 teams added or subtracted at least 3 regular season wins from 22 to 23. Okay. We got Don Johnson in here. It says, "Who cares about the predictions? Look at last year. Coach can use the I think he meant rankings like they used to being 14th in the conference last year." Exactly. That's what I would do. I would take this thing that came out today and post it up and say 6.5, guys. Are y'all better than 6.5? We won 9 last year with all you guys, and we returned all you guys. And a lot of these teams have lost all their guys that are under us, and it's the truth. If we look back at that, so J.J. Jefferson, good one there. Todd Gwynn's with us. Appreciate you being here, Todd, as always. And Todd said something down here. There it is. WU has never had respect in Big 12, as USC Gamecocks have never had respect in the SEC. True. Little USC, as they're called, or they don't have the. I don't know. I guess they're in a separate conference, obviously in the SEC than the Big 12, but at the same time, they're more of a program like a West Virginia. You look at South Carolina, Kentucky, hell, even Tennessee and Florida. Those are programs a lot like West Virginia, a lot like TCU. They could do really good in conferences, but they're just not the top of the SEC. They're not the Alabamas or Georgias or LSUs right now. But that's okay. Okay, let's go back to this. Bring us back up here, because the more I look at it, the more I get mad at it. All right, so we had West Virginia at 6.5, ridiculous. Baylor 5.5. I think that's a little high. Cincinnati 5.5, I think is high. Yeah. Colorado 5.5, I think is low. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I'd put them at a 6.5.
Yeah. Arizona State 4.5, I think is good. BYU 4.5, I think is a little low. And Houston 4.5, I think is good. BYU, though, I think BYU is probably should be about 5, maybe 6. I think they're a little bit better.
Is the hardest one on there for me to put a number to, because I look at them, I'm like, 4.5 looks good. And I look at it again, I'm like, no, they should be a lot higher. And I look at it when you just had it up, I'm like, wait a second, maybe they should be in the middle. So BYU is probably the outlier, and same with Colorado. Those are 2 teams you don't know what the hell's going to happen. Would you be surprised if Colorado got hot and went on a 6-game winning streak?
No, it wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Me neither.
And especially, but if Colorado coming back to the Big 12, Colorado used to be a player in the Big 12, right? They were right there with Oklahoma and Texas every year in the Big 12. They were
late 80s, early 90s. Yep.
Right. So Colorado coming back in the Big 12, I just think that I don't now that they've got a coach in Deion Sanders and they've got some great recruiting classes, they may just pick right back up where they left off in the Big 12 and come in here and finish at the top every year. But I still think this just my opinion. I still think even the 4 newcomers out of the Pac-12 are going to have some adjustments in the Big 12. And I don't mean by talent level or anything like that. I'm talking about the travel, and when these kids got to get on a plane and fly to West Virginia or then fly out to Provo after that or something, it's just going to be a different type of feel, different type of fan base. I would just tell you right now, it's just truth. There's a different type of fan base in the Big 12 than there is in the Pac-12. We have fans at our games. We're not sitting there struggling to get 40,000 people. We have 60, 70,000 people at our games. So that's going to be another point there for these 4 teams coming in for the pack. So I think that I think there are going to be some adjustments for even the 4 newcomers out of the pack. Nothing like it was for the group of 5 schools, but some adjustment nonetheless.
So out of the new schools, which program, fresh out of the gate into the Big 12, do you think has the closest building blocks of being an atypical Big 12 school?
Well, the closest, without a doubt, is Arizona, then
Right.
Colorado. Out of those 4 out of the pack, out of the 4 new schools from this past year, out of the group of 5,
Right.
has to be BYU, and that's what I had said before. Is
Mhm.
BYU played a Power 5 schedule for the most part. They always played 5 or 6 Power 5 teams, whereas UCF and Houston and Cincinnati were not doing that. They were playing maybe 1 Power 5 team. BYU was always playing 5 or 6 of them. Now, not always the top, the pecking order in the Power 5, but they were playing Power 5 programs. So I think BYU, of the 4 newcomers from the group of 5, so to speak, I think they have the right bending blocks. And if you're talking about the Pac-12, who can be the atypical Pac-12 team or a Big 12 team coming from the Pac-12, you have to look at Arizona and Colorado. I think Colorado's probably knows more about the Big 12, obviously, the fan base, the fan support, everything there. So I think there'll be a learning curve for Arizona coming in. But at the same time, Arizona is probably the better. Well, we know Arizona is the better football team than Colorado. So, how can they stack up? I think this season's going to be really fun to watch, to see how Arizona stacks up in the Big 12 and to see how these Pac-12 schools can stack up in the Big 12. I think it'll be interesting here. Utah is going to be absolutely amazing, as always. Utah's one of them teams that, I don't know, they remind me a lot of a Big Ten team. They just do. They just remind me of that Big Ten size on the offensive line, that structure they've got, and it just reminds me of that. So that's why I didn't pick Utah. I think to be a more typical Big 12 team, Colorado and Arizona are closer than Utah. Don't mean Utah's not going to be good and come in here and whip some ass, because I think they are. I think Utah is going to be really good. I just think they're built a little bit different than most teams in the Big 12.
I think UCF is more like an ACC program, but as far as compared to the Big 12 brethren, I think they have the highest ceiling. I think they have the chance to really be a juggernaut with just the size of the school. They're putting money in the program. They have a huge, the fan base, the alumni, all that rolled in. I think UCF is going to be, and they're in Florida, the biggest hurdle for them in these first 2 years, I think the travel, you're losing by 3 points, 4 points a game. That you take that travel out of that, I think that brings them right at, they're going to be very competitive. I think there's a lot of adjustment for coaches too that have never had to deal with that. And I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but you really have to think about that when your kids aren't used to that and your coaches aren't used to that. You can't tell me coaches have been coaching for 15, 20 years have dealt with getting up and going 4 games, 5 games that far, but I want to tie in. Yeah.
They had UCF 8.5.
Yeah. UCF's 8.5. So, I think that's probably why they put them there, but I still think they should be lower. I want to also add Colorado has they have the old, Big 8, they have that old, 1990s playing Nebraska, playing Oklahoma. They even though it's generations ago, it's still going to be easier for them to kind of put those shoes on and walk the walk. And Coach Prime has them ready to play every game. They think they can win. I think that's a big thing when it comes to football, is not that you could win every game, but you think you're going to win every game, right?
Yeah, and Dion's going to think that. Every coach is going to think that, though. But Dion has a way of getting players to believe that and play like that. But when the ball is snapped, here's what I think about that. All that coaching hype and these coaches,
Yeah.
that all works going into a game. The problem is when that ball snapped and things settle down about halfway through the first quarter, take that coach out of it. I mean, yeah, sure, he's still got to coach the game, but them players aren't thinking about that pregame speech and about how they're going to win that game and how good they are. They're not really thinking about that too much. Now, if they're going into the fourth quarter and it's tied up or they're a little bit ahead by a few points, the coach is probably in their face reminding them, hey, this is our game. We're winning this game, and they remember and come out there fired up for the fourth quarter. But it just really doesn't mean a lot to me anyway. It doesn't mean a lot because the game has a way of settling everything down. So if a team comes in all hyped up, and we've seen it before, we've seen teams get hyped up, come out there excited, score maybe the first 2 touchdowns on the team, and they just look like they're unstoppable. And then all of a sudden, there's a 3 and out, and that team scores, the other team scores. Then maybe a couple plays later, there's another 3 and out, and then you go and score again, and now you got a tie ball game, and it just settles down. I feel like in the long run, something that could have happened in the national championship game a couple years ago that might have helped TCU if they could have come out, and played decent to start with, went and scored, and then Georgia scored, and if they could have settled down and just played their game and scored again, they could have probably made a different outcome of that game. Not saying they would have won, but a different outcome on the score for sure. I think they came in too fired up and too ready. They got punched in the mouth and they just couldn't recover. So let's see what Todd said here. Which freshman do you think will make major contribution W this year?
I don't know, but they have a walk on brother of Hudson Clement, Murphy Clement. So with you asking that, Todd, I'm going to say I would love that to be another story, another great story for a preferred walk-on to come in and make a name for themselves. Coming out of Martinsburg, I think the kid's like a $190, 6 foot. I mean, so that means he's 5'11", 170 pounds, right? So I don't know. I think which freshman do I think would contribute this year? And they always have freshmen that seem to touch the ball and play.
And Don Johnson makes a good point here too. And I'm going to put this one too. With our offense, it is to scare defensive coaches. And with what is back, and we have added through the portal, our defense is going to be better. Our new general manager has 18 years evaluating pro talent. Very true. He was a scout, a pro scout.
That's right.
He's at West Virginia now. He's scouting this talent out there in the group of fives. If you think we're getting group of 5 talent and saying, well, they're probably just group of 5 talent, this guy's scouting them. He's looking at them like they would be playing in the NFL. I'm guarantee you.
Yeah,
and bringing them in. So.
Like Draft 412 is a podcast, and this guy, they go in and there's 380 players that they do an evaluation on 200 attributes, and it takes them like 6 hours to do each player. And some of the things they look at will just blow your mind. And I can just see that new general manager using the criteria not to identify seniors to be prospective, big NFL names to be drafted. I think they're doing that now, looking back into 10th grade, 11th grade, senior year, freshman year, and at the school they're playing at. They're looking back. It's kind of like the NFL tactics that they use for the drafting. They're using that for the transfer portal, and it just boggles the mind that this day and age they're doing that. Now they were doing that before with the young recruits, but it seems to be an overlooked skill set that I know West Virginia's been looking at, and they have someone in place with a butt in the seat doing that job. But I think having that experience,
I think it's going to make a huge difference in the program. I really do. I do want to talk about one more thing too, real quick, because I know we're cutting this show off here in the next
Yep.
10 minutes or so. We're going to go watch this basketball game. Um, so I hear a lot of people out there, and we've talked about this in the past, and I bring it up every show, but I got to bring it up again. I am not going to listen or entertain people that are telling me that there's going to be a power two and everybody else is just wasted. Let me tell you, here's why that's not going to happen. Let me tell y'all why that's not going to happen. There's not going to be an SEC Big Ten, and that's all there is in football, and the rest of us are relegated to Group of Five. Because what happens then is you're isolating fan bases. You're taking a West Virginia fan base that's over 2 million strong. You're taking a Oklahoma State fan base that's 2 million strong, a TCU fan base, a Houston fan base, Arizona. You're taking all these fan bases, and if you add all them up, that's 30 or 40 million viewers that watch the Big 12. And media don't want to lose 30 or 40 million viewers. It's not going to happen any day of the week. They're not. There's nobody in the Big 12 that's a Big 12 fan of any team in the Big 12 sitting there going, boy, I can't wait to watch Alabama and Georgia tonight. Can't wait to watch that. Oh, who cares if West Virginia and TCU are playing? There ain't no Big 12 fan saying that. Nobody watches Big 12 saying that. They're all watching the West Virginia TCU game, especially if it plays a part in the Big 12 championship or a future Big 12 championship. So, you got to realize that you're separating fan bases there, and the Big 12 gets just as many eyeballs as the SEC. Big 12 gets just as many eyeballs as the Big 10. Sure, it's scattered out. It may not be, there's a concentrated. Their eyeballs are coming from Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. That's their eyeballs. That's their eyeballs. The Big 12, their eyeballs are coming from every university in the Big 12. BYU got a huge fan base. West Virginia, the biggest fan base in the conference. So you're not going to isolate. They wouldn't isolate BYU and West Virginia fan bases and just put them out. And then you figure out all the other fan bases. I just don't see it. So no, I don't see this Big Two happening. This Power Two, and the rest of us are relegated to nothing, to a nothing burger. I don't see that happening.
If you average 2 million to 2.25 million per fan base, let's just be really round down here, okay?
Yeah.
You're looking at, and then the outliers like your Oregon State and Corvallis, you got Washington State, Boise State, those all have good fan bases too. So let's just say there's 35 programs that are outside looking in that have eyeballs. So you're talking almost close to 100 million eyeballs not watching your product just because you've not included them,
Right.
And even though there's no chance in hell that they're going to be able to play for a national championship, but because there's that tiny incy bincy chance at the beginning of the season that they could run the table and make the playoffs, they have a vested interest in watching Ohio State, watching, Michigan, watching, Arkansas and Georgia. Guys, it's not good. It's not good for business. It's just excluding too many people that are fans. Just having them in the mix, even if they have their fiefdom with the two on top, they have to include at least a channel for them, for other schools, for them to get into the playoffs, in order for there to be parity, in order for them to still get that money. And that's just too much money left out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't see ESPN and Fox and CBS and all these other networks just saying, you're right. The SEC and Big Ten have been carrying football. Let's just show them all them other fan bases. We don't need them. It's just not going to happen because that ain't going to carry college football. Don Johnson says, Tony Creedy interviewed our general manager. I did see a piece of that. Was that 3 guys before the game, Don Johnson, that he interviewed him on? It was 3 hours before the game. I did see a piece of it. I'll have to go back and watch all of that. But appreciate your comment there. And Timothy Green says, or Todd says, I'm old school, really hate what is happening in college football. Same way with me.
Todd, we feel that way. But, we're
And
in the middle of an earthquake. We can either sit there and just watch everything fall, or we can get into the door frame and kind of just brace and wait for things to stake out. And we will bet there's better and brighter times ahead for Mountaineer fans. Just
and Washington State and Oregon
be
State,
patient.
Washington State and Oregon State,
Todd,
they got screwed.
breaks my
They
heart.
got screwed. It breaks my heart too. But I think what they're looking at is, okay, where's the bigger fan base, Washington or Washington State, Oregon State or Oregon? And of course, it's Oregon and Washington, so they took them in. There's probably just not a big viewing audience for Washington State and Oregon State. I don't know. I have never looked at their numbers, but may not be a big viewing audience.
Well, Eugene to Corvallis is like a 45-minute drive, guys. That's closer than what it is from University of Pittsburgh to Morgantown, guys. So they're missing out. I mean, Washington State has had the flag on every ESPN game day back to as long as I can remember. I'm talking 15 years. They've had that flag at every college game day. Someone's repping that school. So what's Tim say? What bothers me about this whole thing is if you don't get to see as many rivalry games. Yes, Tim, you're so right. That's the backbone. Those teams that are right up the road, right up the pike that you've been playing for 50 years. And it makes sense because the cost savings over how many, just say 5 seasons of not driving there is millions of dollars. It just, and for fans, it allows fans to go watch a game in another venue. It just, I don't know. Did you all see ESPN's returning production rankings? No.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that last week.
Oh, yeah.
I brought that in. Yeah. I brought that in. We talked about that last week. Oh, yeah, go back to last week's show.
Last week's show we hit that.
J-Mar Genetics, I guess. Go back. It was last week's show. We talked about that, and the week before, I believe we talked about that some. So, so the West Virginia basketball game is on. I guess we ought to get out of here, let everybody go and enjoy the basketball game. But Shane, you got anything else that you want to add?
No. I just thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and notification bell, and we will be back on Thursday once again. And hey, I'm very positive and very optimistic, I should say, about the spring game coming up. I'm going to get to see some players that I want to see eyeballs and them match up and get a feel and a flavor for what we're going to have coming this August when Penn State comes coming into Morgantown and Mountaineer fans are calling for a victory.
Let's face it. If you want this to change, if you want any of this to change in next year and the coming years, we need to beat Penn State. We need to beat Penn State this year. Maybe we can start changing the narrative for West Virginia a little bit, and people will start looking at us as a program that is not only on the rise, but back, right? We want to be a program that's back. So, but anyway, we do appreciate everybody coming in with us tonight. I do want to remind everybody next week, the whole week is going to be dedicated to Dale Whoopley. So Monday night show with Shane and I,
Yes,
I'll bring on a guest or two that played with Dale Whoopley. On Wednesday night, it's going to be like on the Locker Room show with Frank Fear. That's going to be a program that is a lot like Dale Whoopley's show. So pretty much the people you've seen on Dale Whoopley's show are going to be right there on Frank Fear's show on Wednesday night of next week. And then on Friday night, it's going to be the full remembrance show. We're working with the family to get some family members in for that show as well, and all the former players and coaches to come in or make a video of remembrance of Dale. So that's all next week, and we look forward to that. So we appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight, and we'll be back Thursday night for the Big 12 show, but we stream it right here on the West Virginia channel, and then Friday night's West Virginia Live. Wednesday night, Frank Fear. And also, if you're watching us on the Big 12 channel, tomorrow night, Clint Foster's show on the Big 12 channel. He scheduled that for 7 o'clock. It's called The Biggest 12. Clint Foster does an amazing job of it.
Funny guy.
Guys need to tune in. Yeah, he is. So But we appreciate everybody tuning in. Everybody, we will see you Thursday night. Shane, we'll see you later, buddy. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you, guys.